All right, let's get right into it. We're always hearing about keeping our data secure, right? But what does that actually mean? Like, how does it work? Well, it all boils down to this really old, really basic problem. This right here, this is the fundamental question of cryptography. It doesn't matter if you're a general sending orders on a battlefield or just buying a coffee online. The challenge is exactly the same. So to figure this out, we need to get a handle on a few basic tools that are the building blocks for, well, everything else.
So, what are these essential tools? It really comes down to three key ideas we absolutely have to get straight.
First up, you've got plain text. It's exactly what it sounds like. This is your original message, your secret, written out in plain language that anyone can read. Simple as that. Now, once you disguise that message, you get what we call ciphertext. This is the scrambled, totally unreadable version. The whole point is that if someone intercepts this, it should just look like a jumble of nonsense.
So, how do you get from the readable version to the scrambled one and then back again? That's where the key comes in. The key is the magic ingredient. It's that secret piece of info, kind of like a password or a special decoder ring, that locks your plain text into ciphertext and then unlocks it on the other side.
You got it. That one key does everything. It locks and it unlocks. So the whole process is pretty simple, really. You start with your message, your plain text, right? You use your key and an algorithm to scramble it up into ciphertext. Then you can send it out. On the other end, your friend uses that exact same key to unscramble it, and bam, the original message is back.
Okay, that whole process seems pretty logical. So what's a really simple, almost classic way to actually do this?
Well, one of the oldest tricks in the book is something called a shift cipher. You might have heard it called a Caesar cipher. It's incredibly simple. You just pick a secret number, that's your key, and you shift every letter of the alphabet forward that many spots. So for example, if our key is 3, then A becomes D, B becomes E, and you just keep going like that.
But here's the million-dollar question. Is that really secure? I mean, it just feels a little too simple, doesn't it?
And you know what? You're right to be suspicious, because it's not secure at all. This kind of cipher is basically the same thing as those crypto quote puzzles you see in the newspaper. If an eavesdropper gets their hands on a long enough message, they can totally break it, even without knowing the key.
How do they do it? Well, it's just simple analysis. See, in any language, certain letters pop up way more than others. In English, E is the undisputed champ. So an attacker just counts the letters in the ciphertext. Whichever one shows up the most is probably E. They can also look for patterns, like a single letter floating by itself. In English, that's got to be an A or an I. Using little statistical tricks like these, the whole message starts to unravel pretty fast. It's a fun puzzle, but for real security, it's terrible.
So what this really shows us is that a simple, predictable key is a really weak key. So what's a better way to think about this? A much, much better way is based on a principle called symmetric key cryptography. Now, the core idea is exactly the same as before. You and the receiver share a single secret key. The big difference is that modern systems are designed to make that key so complex and random that it's incredibly hard to guess, even for the most powerful computers out there.
So that makes you wonder, is there such a thing as a perfectly unbreakable cipher? You know, a system with a key that is literally impossible to guess?
Well, in theory, yes. It's a fascinating concept called a one-time pad. The idea is actually beautiful in its simplicity. You create a key that is a completely random string of bits. And this part is super important. The key has to be the exact same length as the message you're trying to send. So here's the breakdown. First, you take your message and you convert it into binary, just a long string of ones and zeros. Then you take your random key and you combine it bit by bit with your message using a cool little logic operation called XOR. The result is your ciphertext. Now, the real magic happens when your friend gets the message. They just do the exact same XOR operation with the exact same key, and poof, your original message pops right back out.
Okay, so what's the catch here? If this thing is perfectly secure, why aren't we using it for everything? This is where we hit the big trade-off in all of cryptography. A one-time pad offers perfect mathematical security. It is literally impossible to crack. But in practice, it's a real headache. For one, your secret key has to be just as long as your entire message. So, want to send a 1 GB file? You need a 1 GB key. Plus, that key has to be genuinely random, which is way harder than it sounds. And the biggest kicker, just like the name says, you can only use that key one single time. That's it.
And that really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? If the only truly perfect way to send a secret message is completely impractical for almost everything we do, then what does that say about the security systems we depend on every single day for our banking, our emails, and literally everything else online?
That's a pretty deep thought, and definitely a topic for another time. If you found this dive into the basics of cryptography useful, do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching.